Welcome back to Just a Verse. My name is Bridget, and I pick just a verse from the Bible, go into detail on that verse, and support it with instances, stories, and experiences. So, we're going to jump right into the video. The verse we're going to be working on is Proverbs 25:28. Whoever has no rule over his spirit is like a city broken down without walls. So, Proverbs 25, whenever you get the chance, you could take the time and read that whole chapter of it's Solomon's Proverbs. So, when you take your time, you can read each and every verse. And then some of the things that Solomon talked about was that how we shouldn't exalt ourselves, and then also we are supposed to humble ourselves before others. And also Solomon talked about how we shouldn't revenge others, but we should rather repay them with kindness. And then on the verse 28, that's when we got that proverb: whoever has no rule on his own spirit is like a city broken down without walls. So now the meaning of that verse: whoever has no rule over his spirit, that means whoever has no self-control, right? It's like a city without walls. So that means if you don't have self control, you don't have any walls. So we can see that everyone has a wall, right? But the wall could be broken down if you don't have self control. Now, what happens when you have no wall? What is a city without walls? It means attackers could come in anytime, right? So if you don't have walls, then that means that the enemy could attack you, destroy, ruin. Like the enemy has authority over you if you do not have self control. So from that verse, we can clearly see that self control is very important, because if someone doesn't have self control, it's easy for the enemy to attack this person. It's easy for the enemy to prevent this person from going to heaven. So, in this video, we're going to be talking about how the enemy could destroy you if you don't have self control. Now, let's take a look at this instance. You know, when you're in a situation, right? And then you're feeling like all hope is gone. And then the enemy start to install all these thoughts in your mind, like, hey, you should give up. God doesn't love you. This situation is never going to eradicate. Now, the person without self control would just fall for the enemy's scheme, right? And will start saying that, yeah, you know what? The enemy is right, and would want to give up on everything, want to give up on life, and just say, yeah, the enemy is right, forget God, right? So you see how the enemy is ruining that person because the person did not have self control. That means their walls have been broken down. So it gives the enemy a chance to ruin the person. But let's look at the person with self control. The enemy would come and just say, hey, you know what? You should just give up. God is not going to help you. So the person with self control, while the enemy is talking to this person, they would be like, you know what? I am not going to fall for what the enemy is saying. I am going to replace it with God's word. God says that the plans he has for me is not of evil, right? Because the person has self control. So the person could control their thoughts. And guess what? Because they have self control, they have strong walls. And because they have strong walls, the enemy couldn't ruin this person. So the person just defeat the enemy with God's word and then have patience And then God just helps this person, delivers this person. So we do see how the enemy can destroy a person when the person lacks self control. We're going to use another one. All right. You know, at times, right, when you're just using your phone, scrolling down your phone, using your phone, and then now it's time to have time with God, and you're just like, okay, you know what? Let me just try this one more thing. And then you just go over your phone, and then you're just, okay, you know what? 2 more minutes, and I'll just have time with God. And you just scroll, and the enemy is like, no, the enemy throws some interesting stuff like, no, here, watch this before you go have time with God. And then you, and then you're also like, yeah, let me watch this first. So by the time you realize the enemy has taken this person to like a different level, next, the person is on their phone, introduced to some ungodly practices by the enemy because they didn't have self control. So you see how, because the person didn't have walls, because of lack of self control, the enemy was able to destroy this person by taking them away from God, since they would not have time with God. Now, let's talk about pleasures in the world. For instance, a close person would just come up to you and just ask you, like, hey, let's just go and get drunk. So the person without self control would just be like, yeah, you know what? That sounds really fun. That looks good. You only live once, so let me just go for it. let me just go get drunk. So you see, the person who lacks self control, now because they don't have any walls, the enemy just destroyed this person. So now you see this person getting drunk. They ended up getting into a fight, and now there's like a police case. So far, we do see how the enemy could destroy a person who lacks self control. So now let's talk about the enemy trying to cause you to sin. So let's name some sins, right? Okay, sins like quarreling, fighting, murdering, fornicating, pride. And you can name some and add on to what I just mentioned, right? So the person without self control will not even control their feelings, actions, or thoughts when the enemy is introducing this person to commit one of these acts, right? They wouldn't even try to reject it because of lack of self control. So they would just fall for it. So we do see that because the person doesn't have self control, the wall of that person is now broken down. So now the enemy comes in, causes this person to commit a sin, and guess what's happening? The enemy is destroying this person. But the person with self control will just be like, no, enemy. Maybe the person would even be close to sinning. But because they have self control, they would just resist. And when that happens, they have strong walls. So the enemy can't destroy this person. So far, we really see how important self control is. Because if you don't have self control, you give the enemy access to destroy you. So if you feel like you don't have self control, pray to God, and God will give you this gift. It's hard for the enemy to attack you if you have self control. And even when we take a look at what happened initially with Adam and Eve, right? When the enemy was tempting Eve, we do see in the Bible that when Eve saw that the food was good to eat and was pleasant to the eyes, that's when she decided to eat that fruit. She fell for the temptation. But let's say if she used self control at that moment, she would say, yeah, I would be wise. The fruit looks good, but hey, I would not fall for this because of self control. In that way, the enemy wouldn't have been able to attack her or to destroy her, that now we do experience death because of what happened. So if you don't have self-control, pray to God, and then God is going to give you this gift, because now we do see how important self-control is, how the enemy could destroy a person without self-control. And if you could control yourself sometimes, right? So you have self-control, but you feel like it's not strong enough, then also ask God, because in that case, yes, you do have a wall, but it would be like a weaker wall. So ask God, and then God will give you this gift. And if you already have self-control, but you just feel like you need an increased self-control, like you need more self-control too, let us ask God for self-control, for an increased self-control, so that we would have a strong wall. And whenever the enemy tries to attack us or destroy us, the enemy wouldn't be able, because we have self-control. Because without self-control, the enemy would prevent us from seeing God. The enemy would just ruin us. And if you feel like you need to fast and pray, that's if you don't have self-control at all. Take your time and do that. And I'm telling you, you would have strong walls, and then it will be time for us to defeat the enemy. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that this video blessed you. And like always, don't forget to like this video, comment, share, subscribe. And if God permits, see you when I upload my next video. Bye-bye.